Here's a guided tour of setting up the Yag Laser. You're going to start by taking the actual laser itself and placing it on top of the cabinet where the large hole is. So effectively you just lift up the laser and just set it in place. It can just sit there loosely, just keep it somewhat aligned straight. The cabling, there's a heavy gray cable. It has a single connection on one end, and the other end of the gray cable has 3 connections. The single end goes onto the back of the power supply. The other end, there's 3 connections, and basically they're going to go onto the marker power, which says number 2, and then where it says external interface, you're going to put the cable that says number 1, and the last connection is the smaller for just the interface, has number 3 on it, and that's going to go directly below the cabinet. This controls the door safety lock and the lights. So then you secure by pressing them in and spinning to lock the connections. The other interface would be the USB cord, and the USB simply is going to plug in there. That's the extent of the actual mechanical setup. As far as the power supply box, before you turn it on, in all likelihood, the emergency button probably got pressed in during shipping, so press it in, and then just to make sure to release it, turn it, it should pop out and you hear a little click. So make sure that's out before you turn on the power supply. On the back of the power supply is the power switch. Turn it on. Green light will come on, and the white light on top of the laser will come on. So that indicates the cabling is correct. The next step is to push the square button, and that'll flash for about 10 seconds. And then it'll go steady yellow. So now the laser is on and energized. The next step is inside the cabinet. When you open the door, you have what's called as a Z-axis table, which controls your height. This is the most important thing, otherwise the laser will not work. If you notice on the side of the door, there's a piece of tape here which will show you the correct height. You line up the edge of the table with that piece of tape. Right now it's too low. So if we raise the table so that it get it exactly to the edge of that tape, and that will be the correct height, and you can move this around a little bit. So now we have the table set at the exact height, and all the cabling is hooked up, and you're going to plug the USB cord into the laptop. As far as the actual software, on the desktop there'll be an application called SW Pro, which is right here, that icon, and you're going to double click it by launching. You'll get a message saying the lens is set to 163. Simply say OK, and now the application is open. Point out some of the important things that you're going to need. On the left side would be the linear text control. You're going to be using that. You're also going to be using the, get this focus better, invert color. You're also going to be using the, across the top, positioning, and lastly, engrave. To do text, we'll start out by simply clicking on linear text to highlight the feature, come anywhere on your desktop, double click, and it'll put the word linear text there. If you want to edit what you're going to actually engrave, you double click the word linear text, and you can put down, for example, edit it and say Mike. Click OK, and now Mike is what we would be engraving. The grid on the table matches up with the grid inside the laser. You can move this around, and wherever that is where it's going to be inside the laser. And also, if you click and drag it to resize it, you can size it so it matches up with the size of the dog tag. Once you have pretty much what you want as far as the text, if you come up to positioning and click on the positioning, inside the laser there'll be a red box that exactly corresponds with the word Mike. Now if I move Mike to the left and I turn positioning off, then back on, Mike moves to the left. And likewise, if I move it over to the right, turn positioning off, then back on, Mike moves to the right. Now, if I put a dog tag in here, what I would do is on the screen, resize it so it's about the size of the dog tag, put it at the bottom of the screen, closest to you, turn positioning off, then back on, and notice in here, that's where Mike would appear, so all you have to do is move the dog tag so that it lines up with it. The red square. The red laser will tell you exactly where it's going to engrave. So at this point, if we close the door and then we come over to the hand that says engrave and we click on it, you'll see Mike engraving inside on the laser. That is how you would engrave text.